Hi, my name is Garrett Newell, and I decided for my topic to talk about the stock market, kind of at first in general, kind of explain what it is, what a stock is, kind of give a general overview, and then I wanted to go towards like what are chosen investment strategies that work, and also maybe some resources that I have here that will help you some guys to follow who have been successful in investing and just stuff like that. So we'll get to that. But at first, I just wanted to kind of go over what the stock market is. And the reason that I chose this topic is because I want to be involved in the stock market, like as my career, whether it's working, for investment firm, kind of like Fidelity or Vanguard, TD Ameritrade, Charles Schwab, or what have you, one of those. That's the whole reason that I'm pursuing this, my major, which is finance. So that's something I'm really passionate about, and something I've been heavily involved in for, I would say, going on about a year now. So I'm not a pro by any means, but I'm learning, and it's something that I'm excited to talk about. So I'm kind of I was looking forward to sharing it with somebody who actually well, I guess you have to listen, but somebody who would listen because it's interesting to me. A lot of people look at the stock market as something that's like, I'm not going to put my money in that because it's gambling. Like I'm not going to win. It's something for only rich people, and that's really not true. I don't think you can look through the course of the entire history of mankind, really, and there's really nothing that has been invented before the stock market that it's the biggest wealth creating tool in history. Really, it's something that the average person can invest in, and it can build wealth if you know what you're doing, and you're not constantly putting your money in, taking it out, putting it in, taking it out, and you're wise about the companies that you invest in. Now, what is a stock? It's literally, you literally own a part of the company. So let's say you buy a share of Apple and they have a million shares. You own one millionth of that company. Or if you bought two shares, it'd be two 1 millionths, or however you'd say that. So that's how it is in the stock market. Is where these stocks, these little fractions of ownership in companies are traded. So the New York Stock Exchange. That's one that we think of here in America. And up until a few years ago, I didn't really understand the stock market, and I thought like everybody else, it's just gambling, or it's just like a rich man's game. You're not going to win. But really, over the past 6 years, because I started investing in my 401k about 6 years ago, whenever I started working. So I've been investing, I guess you could say, for that long, but like personally and by myself for about a year now. And I started really getting into it, like I said, about a year ago. And so yeah, and so how does this, when a stock goes up or down in price, like what is that? What causes it? Why is a share worth $100 today, but tomorrow it's worth 95? What moves a stock is it'll go up whenever somebody buys it, and it'll go down when somebody sells it. Now this has to happen in like mass, so like like 10,000 shares have to be bought to move it up a point, depending on how many shares the stock has, and 10,000 shares have to be sold, for it to go down a point. Again, that's just an example. That's not exact, but that's for the most part. That's what moves a stock. So, to be a successful investor, what you want to do is obviously you want to buy a share in a company that people are going to buy and continue to buy. So, kind of just that was kind of the overview, and kind of some of the misconceptions. It's not really gambling, because a gamble is just you're putting money on something and you're leaving it up to pure chance. This, like, when you're doing it right, it should be an educated choice on what you're buying, what companies like what company you're buying. It should be an educated choice, not just oh, I'm just going to pick whatever. And if you are doing that, then you're probably not going to be successful, because you're leaving it up to chance, and it is gambling if you're doing it that way. I really want to get into what I think the best investment strategy is, and it can be traced back to a guy named Benjamin Graham, and he wrote this book. It's called The Intelligent Investor, and it's also, the foreword was written by Warren Buffett. Why? Because Benjamin Graham was Warren's professor in college. Whenever Warren Buffett was getting his master's in economics, Benjamin Graham was his professor, and as somebody who Warren Buffett, he mimicked a lot of what Benjamin Graham taught, and a lot of what could be found in this book. And it's called value investing, is what the term that you can classify these men as, value investors. And what they're trying to do is they're trying to find stocks that are currently undervalued by the market, and that the market doesn't realize as valuable, and they're trying to buy it low, and then eventually their whole premise is the stock market will recognize the value in that stock and it'll go up to what it's really worth. So they're trying to find undervalued stocks, and it's really complex. I think different people have different ways of determining like what they think a company is worth. It could be, like they recognize a company is sitting on a lot of value in real estate, and maybe the stock isn't reflecting that. So it's really in depth, and it's really, I think people have different ways of valuing companies. But it wasn't just Benjamin Graham. I mean, it wasn't just Warren Buffett who came out of Benjamin Graham school. There were like 3 or 4 or 5, I think, other major investors who studied under Benjamin Graham, and they lived, throughout the 50s and mainly the 80s is when the prime was, and they all be traced back to Benjamin Graham and like his like class that he taught, over the decades that he taught. It can be traced back to Benjamin Graham. So there's obviously something there. If all these men became, and they were all billionaires, they all became billionaires. There's obviously something going on with the strategy. I feel like that obviously works, right? So that's interesting book. And also there's another one. It's called One Up on Wall Street. It was written by Peter Lynch in, I think, 1989. So some of the stocks that he's talking about is obviously outdated, but the strategy still worked. And I think he could be classified as a value investor as well. And what makes him so credible is he ran a mutual fund for Fidelity from like the early 70s to like 1990, and he made an average of 29% a year on the money invested in that. So that kind of gives him credibility. He preaches a lot of the same stuff as you want to look at the fundamentals of a company, which can be found on SEC.gov. Companies have to report once a year, like basically all the other accounting stuff, their assets, their liabilities, their equity, and they have to make it public. And you can find that on SEC.gov every year for a company, and you can look at that and you can see like how much debt are they carrying, how much are they earning a year, what's their revenue, are they even making a profit? Some companies have negative earnings, like Tesla. They're not even making money. They're Uber. They don't turn a profit. So you kind of want to think about, do I really want to invest in this company whenever they're not even profitable yet? When you have, as opposed to other companies like Apple, who they're sitting on like $100 million just in cash. And Johnson & Johnson, they have a AAA rated balance sheet, which is higher than even the United States. I think the United States is like a double A now, AA plus or whatever. So looking at the fundamentals of a company and actually studying how a company is doing, not just going with, oh, hey, everybody's talking about Apple, so I'm going to go buy Apple. Well, what do the numbers look like? That's how you, in my opinion, you become a successful investor, is by looking at the fundamentals, studying, doing your homework on a company, and then making an educated decision on which stock to buy, not necessarily just going with the momentum of a stock, because that's not the way to make money. If anything, you're going to lose money on that. So yeah, there's my presentation and a little bit about the market. I hope you guys enjoyed it.